Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's event. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Grundy, the Secretary of the BCS London Central branch. This event is a collaboration between three BCS groups, London Central, London North, and the Business Change Specialist Group. And we hope that this will be the start of a series of business analysis related events. Our speaker today is Dr. Kitty Hung. Kitty is a principal consultant at Atkins and holds the BCS International Diploma in Business Analysis. I also have that diploma, and I'd recommend you take a look at the excellent certificates and qualifications that BCS has to offer. Kitty is also a fellow of BCS, so we're very pleased that she's able to share her insights and experience with us. So over to you, Kitty.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to my talk, and thank you for coming to listen to my talk and to share my journey to tackle the brave new world. I was inspired by a book written by Aldous Huxley back in 1932. Is the name of the book called Brave New World. And here's the quote from Aldous Huxley. He said, "I wanted to change the world, but I have found that the only thing one can be sure of changing is oneself." So I refer the Brave New World. In the Brave New World is full of the emerging technology, all the new technologies. So I basically want to share with you my experience in supporting emerging technology projects from the business analyst standpoint. In my talk, I have the agenda here. I will go through about the technological trend back in the mid-90s. And I would like to share with you 4 takeaways: understanding the emerging technologies, user-centric research. As a BA, once we understand the emerging technologies and we understand the user's expectation, we would be able to ask the right questions to capture the requirements. And lastly, my last takeaway will be the user acceptance testing. It is quite different from the traditional 2D app on the flat screen, because the emerging technologies about sound and sight and motion, the behavior, the performance of the devices, because devices can move. And I also have a case study to share with you where I supported the emerging technologies projects. And finally, I have the conclusion and Q&A. If you have questions, that will be the opportunity to ask me. However, if you have any burning questions, you can chip in and I can just answer the questions. So as David has already introduced me, so I don't have to spend too much time to talk about myself. One thing I just want to share with you that since I joined the Capita as a business analyst in 2017, I started to support the emerging technology. The first one is a smart meter. And then when I moved to Raytheon, I continued to get involved in the emerging technologies like drone and robotic system. And currently, I am the principal consultant in Atkins. On the top of my role, to deliver the BA capabilities to customers, I also create kind of thought leadership to lead our customers to adapt the emerging technologies. I've been in this industry for a quarter of a century now, so I've gone through the technological trends in the mid-90s. You have the information technology is pretty much about transforming paper-based form into electronic form with a backend database. And in the operational side, the operation technologies is pretty much the machine in manufacturing industry, maybe nuclear power station or water treatment plant. They pretty much do it in silo. They have their own firmware. They do the work, but they didn't really talk to information technologies. We approached the millennium. Thank God, we all survived from the millennium bugs. and we are all here. That is the first generation of the internet, is Web 1. And at that time, you know, in the information technology side, you have e-commerce. People started using the internet to purchase items for the internet shopping. That's the first generation of the e-commerce. From the operational side, the hardware became smaller, smarter, and more intelligent. And with the invention of the cloud computing, the storage became a lot cheaper. And then the artificial intelligence could use the big data analytics to provide more powerful results in terms of using the algorithm and like a predictive computing. And also in the kind of mid 2000, we got the invention of Internet of Things, drones and robotics. Robots are not new technology. Robotic technology dated back to 70s, 80s. But at that time, robots communicated with the controller using the sensory, the sensor and the actuary. And also the controller had to be within maybe 1 meter or 1 or 2 meters away from the robot. With the Internet of Things, because the operation technology, the devices started using the internet to talk to each other. So the robots could communicate with the humans using the internet. So the humans do not really have to be in the same room as the robots, can be somewhere in another location or even another country. So the internet has brought all the information technology and the operation technology together and to become a very powerful devices. And I call them Internet of Things, which is like a agreed, recognized term to explain the hardware device in the operation technology side, talking to each other and merge with the information technology. And in the mid 2000, we have the social media, like the birth of Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And all of a sudden, people can upload their clips online to share with each other, and people can connect with each other through the social media platform. And then in 2007, it goes without saying, is the birth of iPhone. The iPhone with all the apps, and people can use the phone like a computer with the apps, and also they can use and also they can listen to music. It's all like a integrated device in one single device, as telephony, apps, application, online shopping, music, etc. And with the advancement of the artificial intelligence, then the machine learning becomes more accurate and more sophisticated. And now, from 2010 onward, the two trends merge together into one single technology, and I call it emerging technologies. Then we have smart city and digital twin and blockchain. And the blockchain support the Bitcoin, and also with a more sophisticated decentralized ledger system for security. And currently we have nanotechnology and also a driverless car. I predict in the future we'll have transhumanism, you can say implanting a microchip to the brain to cure dementia or other brain degeneration diseases. Or you can speak 18 languages suddenly because of the implant of the brain chip. Also, space tourism and space migration. It's not really in the future because, as you know, Elon Musk, SpaceX, and Richard Branson, Gallica, and also Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin. They are all wanting to take us to go to live to the in space. So I have 4 takeaways. As a business analyst, the emerging technologies, as you can see, is very, very different from the traditional 2D app on the flat screen. If we want to get involved, to get opportunity, to get involved in the emerging technology projects, my suggestion is we need to have an understanding of emerging technologies. Emerging technology is very new. Sometimes if you use a traditional business requirements capturing method, it might not be effective because the users, the customers might not know what they want because they don't know what the capability, what the offering from the emerging technologies. So as a BA, it is quite important to conduct user-centric research to understand the users, what the purpose and what's the expectation and what's their sentiment. For example, if you have emerging technologies, you go to tell the user this can be done, and then users may think, okay, with this I can apply this technology to my day-to-day work. If you just ask them what they want, they wouldn't be able to compare the capability of technology and their day-to-day practicality of the day-to-day business. Once you understand the emerging technologies, what they are, and then you understand the user's expectation, you should be able to ask the right questions. And finally, the final takeaway is the user acceptance testing. And I will explain more in my next slide to give you some hints and tips about how to conduct the user acceptance testing. So for emerging technologies, here are only a few examples. You can see smart meter, digital twin, space, smart home, metaverse. Metaverse is the combination between augmented technology and virtual reality. And then satellites, driverless car, drone, and Internet of Things. So it's not new to me because, as you know, I've been in the civil service sector for 15 years. We hardly code in-house. Most of the time, we will buy off-the-shelf package. As a BA, someone already decided to procure off-the-shelf package before we even capture the requirements. So I would go to learn how Salesforce works, how Oracle works, and how SAP works. I need to learn the off-the-shelf package first. And then I have this knowledge, and then I went back to ask the users about the requirements, and I will be able to confirm to them, yes, your requirements can be supported by this Cox product, or no, at the moment, your requirements cannot be supported by this Cox product, at least in the current release. So I have the knowledge. So it's no different in the emerging technologies. So you go to learn what are the IoT, what driverless cars works, and what drone or robotic work, and then you go back to the customers. When you capture the requirements, you'll be able to ask the right question and to confirm the capability between the requirements and the IoT, the emerging technologies. The next one is the user-centric requirements engineering. You can see before the user stories, there are 4 steps you need to conduct. Even before bogging down to the user requirements. The first one is the user persona. The user persona is to understand who are the user, what they do, what's their position in the business, and what's their view about the project. It's just to understand the user. If you have multiple users in your project, you need to create one user persona per user. The next one is called user empathy map. It's to capture what the user thinks, sees, hears, and does. This purpose is to draw out the observation and to get out the insights about the user's needs. And then the next one is called user survey. It's very important. I give you an example. For example, Elon Musk wants to deploy 1 million driverless car to the market. As a BA, I work in Elon Musk Gigafactory. Before the production, I will go to the market to conduct a user survey to see what the drivers will think about driverless cars. And the survey might come back, say 65% of the drivers, they still feel very nervous about the totally automated driverless car. Only 35% of the drivers say, yes, I am ready. I'm ready to buy a driverless car and let the car drive itself to take me to my destination. So I produce this user survey results to Tesla car. And then they say, oh, in fact, there are not many people are ready for the driverless car. They actually prefer a hybrid car that the drivers can take control of the cars when they don't feel confident and don't feel comfortable. So Elon Musk might go, okay, I'm going to produce 650,000 hybrid cars and 350,000 driverless cars. Had this user survey not been conducted, Elon Musk will have 1 million cars totally driverless and 650,000 of them will be sitting in the forecourt waiting to be sold. So user survey is very important, especially in the emerging technologies. At the end of the day, my role is to protect the user's financial interests and to reduce the risk, to basically to make sure the products will be can be sold. So after these 3 steps, you have all the information about the users, and you do a discoverability stage is to connect everything related to each other. For example, you have user persona maps and user empathy maps, and then the user surveys, and you can connect and maybe group them, categorize them to see whether they have any trigger point or dependency or interdependency. So you will, by now, you will have a pretty good picture about the user community, and then you have the confidence to go to capture user requirements using the agile user story style to produce the user stories. And next, requirement traceability is important currently in the traditional 2D app on the flat screen. Is even more important in the emerging technologies world, because emerging technology is very complicated, very new. It seems to have bugs and failure problems during the testing. During testing, if you find the defect, you must be able to trace back to the source, to the user story or epic. So requirement traceability, you have the cross-reference between the use case or user story, the solution case, test case, etc. You got cross-reference tightly. They'll be able to fix the problem. And also, you may have a user story that related to another user story. So if you have found a defect in this component, you trace back to the user story. If you change that, if you fix that, you need to look at whether there's any impact on another user stories. So lastly, the benefit realization. Benefit realization is important already in the current world, but in the emerging technologies world, is even more important. Customers feel a bit nervous about these emerging technologies because they're not so sure whether they should invest millions of pounds, a lot of money in the new and emerging and expensive technologies. The benefit realization will give us a tool and technique to demonstrate to the customers whether their investment is value for money and they can get the return of investment or not. It's not all benefits all the time. The benefit realization map also can draw out the disbenefit. So we can use this tool to look at whether the investment can bring benefits or bring disbenefit to the organization. The next one is I want to touch on the modeling techniques. The traditional UML notation is enough for application on the traditional 2D app on the flat screen. However, when it comes to emerging technology, it's more complicated. We are talking about the behavior of the devices, not just the interface. I have the project that I found the UMLs not adequate. So I adopted system modeling language called SysML. SysML is the extension of UML. It's quite new. It only came out in 2007. So it's a lot shorter than the history is a lot shorter than UML. SysML added 5 more notations to plug the gap that UML has left off. SysML can model not just the application, but also organization, people, processes, hardware, systems. So I use the SysML to model the technology, the emerging technologies. The next one is business process modeling notation. I think BPMN will still have its place in the emerging technologies world, but in the future, don't be surprised if you model the BPMN, you have a swimming pool and with multiple swim lanes, you might have to create swim lanes for robots and humans. There will be a hybrid BPMN. And why not? If the robots can carry out the tasks like a human, then the robot will need to do handoff and communicate with other humans. So watch this space.
So in this slide, I want to touch on the point about non-functional requirements. So you ask, what's the difference between the applications, the desktop, laptop application we're working now, and emerging technologies? So for the non-functional requirements, I kind of classify them into 3 areas. There can be more. The first is the integration. No companies would throw away their all their existing system and replace everything with the new system. I'll give you an example. Amazon. Tomorrow, Amazon has decided to replace all their warehouse workers with robots, everyone. So the robots would be able to pick up the goods from the lorries and stack on the shelf, and also pick up the items from the shelf and package them and to send to customers. So it's wonderful technologies. But at the same time, Amazon has been using a warehouse inventory database application system, and for a very long time, and it works very well. They're not going to throw away. So how are we going to let the robots communicate with the warehouse inventory database system to update what goods has been stacked on the shelf and what goods has been picked from the shelf? So as a BA, you need to ask the question. You need to look at the integration. There will be issues because about the interoperability and compatibility. I don't have a solution, but I will let you ask the users. You just to give you some kind of points that when you deal with emerging technology projects, they always will be an integration problem. The next one is about regulations. When you work on an application on a desktop or laptop, you need to know the like GDPR or any regulatory, like in financial industry or in energy industry. You need to know the regulations. However, the emerging technology has taken the regulation to the whole new level. For example, if a driverless car runs through the red light, who is going to take the penalty and the 6-point deduction? Will it be the driver? Oh, the driver said, oh, it's not my problem. The car drives itself. Oh, maybe Tesla, the car manufacturer. And then the car manufacturer said, no, we just assembled the car. It's not our problem. And maybe the part supplier, the supplier who supplied the sensor and the speed control will need to take the responsibility. So at the end, there's like 3 parties fighting with each other. You don't know who will take the fine. You don't know who will take the point, because there's no point for the car to take the point. It's always a driver. So I don't have a solution. I don't have an answer, but I can tell you at the moment the laws, the rules and regulations are not enough to cover the emerging technology. I give another example. You deploy a drone. The drone is more like a swarm intelligent technology. The swarm intelligence is like decentralization of AI. They can actually do the like a cell-driven. They will make a decision based on the algorithm. So the drone will fly to some people's private properties. Is the police going to arrest the drone for trespassing? We don't know. And also, we talk about, like, as you know, internet and the World Wide Web is supposed, we have a one world and borderless. Everyone working towards the same goal, same innovation. But unfortunately, geographically, we still have different countries with different jurisdiction system. So, for example, it is not okay to steal IPR in the UK and EU, but it might be okay to do this in some other countries, no name mentioned. So criminals will be able to go around the world to look at the loophole, the legal loophole. So as a BA, again, I don't have a solution because I am not a lawmaker. But when you ask questions, when you prepare the questions to get requirements from the users, you need to raise this point about regulations, see whether we'll come to something that we can protect the interests of our customers. That's the whole point. Thirdly, cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is important. It's important at the moment in the traditional app on the desktop and laptop. Emerging technologies, they are very new. They are very immature. They're not well defined. It seems to leave some backdoor for hackers to hack the system and to conduct cyber espionage. So we need to take notice of that. And also, you are dealing with, when you develop a system on the desktop or laptop, the laptop is just right in front of you. It's quite secure in the room surrounded by 4 walls. But what if you are deploying a drone, a robot out and about? So we need to take notice about physical security. A while ago, I was invited to be the panel of judges from the University of Sheffield Artificial Robotic Department, student tournament, innovation tournament. And one of the presentations is that they want to create a robotic arm to go to the ocean to pick up plastic bottle. They said that deep learning, machine learning will be able to identify, this is a fish, release it. Oh, this is a plastic bottle, grab it. So it's wonderful in innovation. It's very good for the environment. And I kind of threw a question. I said, what happens if you have big current, big wave, and just swap the robotic arm away? How are you going to recover it? because it's an expensive item. So we are dealing with something that we need to pay attention to the physical security side. You deploy a drone, if the drone gets compromised and hacked by the hackers and get kidnapped, do you have any measure to have the tracking device and to track the location of the drone and how to recover it? So physical security is the added element in the emerging technologies. Also, because cybersecurity, there are 2 points about when we go to learn about the emerging technology, we will go to talk to the subject matter expert or the inventor, because the technology is so new, it's like their babies, the devices, maybe they will be very reluctant to tell you too much about their invention. So that can pose some kind of challenge to BA if we want to learn about the functionality and how the IoT devices work. But don't get me wrong, cybersecurity is important. We need to respect that. There will be occasions that the cybersecurity might be the obstacle of the proceeding of the processes and the launch of the innovation. So cybersecurity might delay or affect the launching of the innovation. So we have to strike a balance. Cybersecurity innovation is up to you as a BA to strike this balance. So for the UAT, user acceptance testing, I said what you see is what is not what you get, because you can see if the size is only one of the elements, we need to test the behavior. We need to test the performance of the devices, the movement. For example, if you are testing metaverse, the metaverse, you will be able to test, you need to test the touch, the control, the sound in the system. And you might need to test the goggle, the headset and the gloves of. So in the emerging technologies, in the UAT, not just you test the software or the applications, you also need to test the hardware. So your test scripts will be a lot more than the traditional 2D apps on the flat screen, a lot more, because you have a lot of activities involved in order to test that. Some people might say to me, oh no, we can use digital twin, we can just test on the screen, no worry. But seeing is believing. If you want to test a driverless car, you might just get on the car and test with the users, rather than sitting in front of the screen and test using the digital twins. So I've got some examples of the BA artifacts. So I hope I have the time. Yeah, I still have some time, yeah. This project is a very small project. It is a digital twin project, and the device is an IoT because it talks to the internet. It's to create a 12 kilovolt power stage. As the first demonstration, it's a prototype to increase the power of the power engine and to reduce the noise and to optimize bandwidth. So from the outset, you might say, yeah, it's a very simple project, but what for? I'm going to tell you. When I first pick up this project, I would say, what's the point to do this? It's like a university student project. You just test the power of the engine and the noise of the engine and the bandwidth of the engine. Then I find out from the user-centric requirements engineering, the user persona, the user actually have a long-term goal. If this prototype is successful, the engines could be installed in aircrafts. Commercially, imagine if you live near the airport, the planes, they can fly without compromising their speed and performance, but we will have a quieter planes from the commercial viewpoint. I work on this project when I was with Raytheon. It is a military equipment manufacturer. So they support MOD's work to, if this prototype is successful, the engines could be installed in fighter jets. With the quieter fighter jet, we might be able to escape the enemies, and we might be able to increase our chance to win the war. So if you're like, oh my God, this is really cool. And we will have quiet planes for commercial flights, and we will increase our chance to win the war against the enemy because we have a quiet fighter jet. So I think this is really good. So with the user persona, I capture the goal from the users, what's the user frustrated, and what's the user goal, and what is the user's motivation. I can share these templates with you. I can email the PowerPoint slide deck to Dalim, and if you want a copy of this slide deck, please feel free to reach out to me or Dalim, and we will share with you. And the next one is user empathy map. You can see in the user in the middle, the user here about, yeah, they need to, there's a pressing issue. They really want to increase the performance of the engine, but also at the same time reduce the noise, and to optimize the bandwidth, because the engine itself is an IoT. So we need the consistency between the IoT and the server or the data center. The things and feel is as you know, in recent years, especially recently, the fuel cost has gone up like 40%. So it's so important to consume the energy more wisely and economically. So if we can find a way to program the engine to consume less power, but without compromising the performance, as well as reducing the noise to support the environmental sustainability, that will be a perfect world. And that's how the motivation the user can see. And then the user say and does. The user, in order to do that, the engine is actually, is because it's IoT, it can be programmed. It can be programmed to control the release of engine and the consumption of the power, and also the noise level and the consistency of the bandwidth. So they will do a lot of testing. And then here's the increase of operational cost. That's the motivation behind that. Yeah, this is the pain. We have the pain. Yes, noisy engines is not good for the environment. And if we can reduce the noise, we can support the environmental sustainability. So that's the solution to optimize the engine power, reduce the noise, as well as optimize the bandwidth. I didn't do the user survey for this project because it's a prototype. But if you want to do the user survey, you can get a lot of good templates from open source like SurveyMonkey. So there's so many examples and templates you can find on the internet. But I did do the user journey map. From the outset, it looks like a business process mapping, but it's not. It is actually just one user, the customer journey map. The columns here is the direction of travel from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And then the grid here, the rows, is like storyboard, customer touch point, the customer goal, the output, the interaction between the customer and the solution provider, and the enabler from the service provider to the customers. In these small examples, it's quite simple. The customers will, as a supplier, we produce the digital twin. The digital twin is to a simulation of the IoT. So we use the digital twin. We can test whether the consumption of power, consumption of energy, the level of power, and the level of noise, and the bandwidth, the consistency of the bandwidth. So as a user, they go to generate the power, test the power, generate the noise, test the noise, and then look at the bandwidth and measure the bandwidth, and then to compare the stage that whether they have improved. If not, they can go back and fix it. So if the customer journey, they just do it round and round. At some point, when the customers need to interact with us, we have the customer touch point to interact with us through face-to-face meeting or email or phone call or Teams call, etc. And now finally I come back to the user story. After all these procedures that I have created, so the user stories is pretty much the traditional agile user stories. So as an electrical engineer, I want to use the digital twin to help me create a situation I can test to simulate the power generator, and I can test the power level, the noise level, and the bandwidth level. And here I have the acceptance criteria. The acceptance criteria, I use the BDD, business driven development, which is part of the agile methodology. And each requirements and the user story, I have the requirement ID for the traceability, and then the test case ID as well. As I said, requirement traceability is important. So there should be 4 different types of traceability. The forward traceability is you create the user stories, epics, and you go all the way to the resolution and the test case. And then you have the backward traceability to trace back from the test case to the resolution to the acceptance criteria and user stories. And then you have the vertical traceability is you trace back between the user stories, acceptance criteria, all the way up to the epics. The approach is pretty much the same as the traditional 2D apps on flat screen in terms of the emerging technologies. So here it is called horizontal traceability. At some point when you find defects in the test, you say, okay, I trace back to the original source of the user story. Then you realize that this user story has dependency to another user stories. So if you change, if you fix the bugs or the defects, or you renegotiate with the users, you need to look at whether this particular user story has any impact and dependency with other user stories. It's very important. You don't want to just change one thing and not change other things, and turn out because you change this user story, you change the development, and then the other parts doesn't work. So you do need to look at the dependency and the interdependency, which is really important. Here is this is just an example of the benefit realization. The benefit realization, you see from the left to right, you have the capability, generate the outcome, and generate either benefit or disbenefit, and in order to meet the objectives. However, when you sit down and create that, you don't do it like this. You do from the right-hand side. First of all, you identify the objectives from the right-hand side. And the objectives: reduce noise pollution for the environment, contribute to the military strategy with quieter aircraft engines, ensure reliability and consistency of communication between the digital twin and the power stage. This is the objective, because these black boxes, they are the wishes from the customers. They are the objectives from the customers. And you work backward. How do you, what kind of capability you need to do in order to create the outcome, in order to create the benefits? In here, I have identified 3 benefits. Yeah, increase engine power, reduce engine noise, and optimize the bandwidth. There are some points that maybe there's a disbenefit. But in this example, I put it like benefit realization. And then you have the output and the capability. if you do the software development, which is very important, and the hardware production, you can create a capability to improve the power control, and the outcome will be the power control easy to manage, and the amount of power consumption can be easily estimated. And if your output, you have a reliability, accuracy, and stability development, you will be able to generate a capability, increase the power, and then the aircraft engines become more powerful. At the same time, this output below that, you need to measure the decibels and compare the decibels. The thing is, when they increase the power, they need to keep testing the noise level. So they will achieve the capability to reduce the noise, and more powerful engine with less noise, and to reduce the noise pollution to the environment, to achieve the benefit as well as the objective. And then to configure the router. So they need to basically configure that in order to optimize the bandwidth. That's the example. And then if you're still awake, I'm going to walk through you with the UML and SysML notation, and which I think is the core as a BA, what you need to create and document and model the system. As I said, SysML can model something that UML is not able to do it. This is one of the examples. SysML allows me to model the organization. So in this package diagram, I model the organization, I model the layers of the technology, and I model the team. And SysML provides me with the capability to model the requirements. So it means that I have parent requirement. It looks like a class diagram in UML. I have a parent's requirement, and then I have some child requirements. So these are small requirements. They are actually part of the inheritance from the parent's requirement. And you also have association requirements. So in this one, the objectives is to reduce, increase power, reduce noise, and to optimize the bandwidth. So this is another new in SysML. It's called block definition diagram. It's really powerful. It looks like a class diagram, but in the class diagram, in the traditional UML, you have like the name of the class or the object, the operation, and the attributes. It's very, very much database driven, but in SysML, it's very, very much real-time machine messaging exchange driven. So in the block definition diagram, they pick up the object, and inside the object, they actually put parts inside. In this example, it's 2 parts, but you can have multiple parts. You can have more than 2. So what they do is in the parts communicate to another part through the port. This is the port, and this is the direction of flow. So you might ask what that for. In software coding, software modeling, you have the component inside a block, and you can have the internal communication. One component can send message and receive message to each other. And then the parts can talk to different parts. And then inside the blocks can communicate with each other. It's all about message exchange. Yeah, this is the how you document a block definition. The block definition, you can see you can model system, hardware, software, data, procedures, facility, and persons. This is the style guide, the design of the block definition diagram. This is like class and object diagram. This is UML. So in SysML, you still can model something using the UML technique. And this is more like the more detail about the definition. Block is a definition. capture properties and reuse in multiple contexts. And then it's a usage, the green text, yeah. The green text is really powerful because you can define inside these bits of code. You can have one component send message to another component and the other components receive message through this is the graphical representation of the piece of code. It's the part sending message to another part through the port and the direction of flow. I am not a programmer. I work closely with the subject matter experts, and I got all this information from them, and then to produce the SysML notation. And this is the definition, the name. You know, when you have the block definition diagram, you always have the title of the block name and to on the upper left-hand corner, and inside each block you will have the parts and the parts, the direction of flow, and this is like an explanation how they communicate with each other in the parts inside the block. Yeah, this is the UML. This is taxonomy. It's like a parent class and child classes. Yeah, use case diagram. We still use it in SysML. Yeah, sequence diagram. SysML keeps it. Yeah, state machine is a UML, so you can still use it in SysML. Yeah, this is the. In my case study, I only use the message flow, but in SysML, you can have another symbol to represent interface exchange. So, but I didn't use it. I only use the flow port for my particular project. So this is my all-time favorite diagram. It's called parametric diagram. It looks like a class diagram, but you can see it allows me to document mathematical equation and formula. I didn't find it in UML, but SysML, it does it. You can see I have voltage equation, time equation, power generation equation, velocity equation, and acceleration equation. I work closely with the subject matter experts, and I captured, they provided me with the notation, with the mathematical equations and the formula, and I put it down. So the benefit is on the programmers, when they look at this diagram, they will know it's a lot easier for them to code. Before that, before I got involved in the project, they have just lines and lines of description in textual format, and they find it really difficult to follow. The reason why they invited me to be part of the project team is for many years, they use system engineers to capture requirements from the business. The system engineer will just jump to, yes, I have a solution. Yes, I have the code. They said, hang on, we need to lean back. We need to lean back to find someone who have a like a breath of fresh air with a user-centric mindset. That's the value of BA. That's our core competence. We don't go jump to the solution. We think about the user first. And if you tell me what to do, I model it, and I model it nicely because I have many years of experience in UML. So when I pick up the SysML, it's pretty much like I know how to drive, and now I have like an advanced driving course. So it's not like too difficult for me. And I believe if you have experience in UML, you should be able to pick up the SysML quite easily. And this is also parametric diagram, but it's in a dynamics analysis view. So you can see I got all the blocks. I got all the blocks with the mathematical equation and the formula. And then I got the ports. The ports, they can communicate with each other. There's no arrow because they can flow around. Because when you do the testing, when you do the development, you need to increase the power, reduce the noise, optimize the bandwidth. The system will do the loop, again and again and again until you have achieved the optimization. And that's the function of the parametric diagram in the dynamic analysis view. And this activity diagram is UML, so it's quite pretty straightforward. But SysML have done something a bit more clever, because in SysML you said it has activity diagram with streaming inputs and output. So imagine you have the block definition, and inside the block definition, you have all these functions. You put the state machine activity inside the block. But then before the state machine can start, there's some input from other blocks. And then you do the operation inside. And then as the result, you have some outputs to provide to another components. So this is quite powerful and quite straightforward to. So I finished all my notation, and now it's more like a conclusion. So my personal challenges. So I think the emerging technology, the brave new world is here, whether you like it or not. I've been thinking about, if we become complacent and just stay in the 2D app on the flat screen world, the project might dry out, because the emerging technologies will eventually take over the traditional application on the flat screen. Eventually, we all have to face the music to take the work to support IoT devices, the launching of drone, driverless car, space shuttles, spacecrafts, and robots. Eventually, we have to face this situation. My advice to you is, I hope this presentation is useful to you. And in the future, if you do take up the emerging technology projects, don't be afraid. Let's tackle the brave new world. And thank you very much. And I need time for Q&A. As you can see, you can reach me on email, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I have all these accounts in there. And for LinkedIn, you just type out Kitty Hung, BCS fellow, it will pop up. I'm the only Kitty Hung in the world. Yeah, it's very easy to find me. I don't know why. Yeah. So any questions?
You mentioned that the hardware testing should really be done by a business analyst. How much responsibility will you say does the supplier take for that? And how much do you as a business analyst?
As a business analyst, always think of the user. If the user, I can see the transition. It's not easy, because traditionally, when you develop a 2D app on flat screen, you don't really have to worry about the operating system, because it's either launched on Windows or iOS or Android. You don't really have to worry about, and it's a desktop or a laptop. But in the IoT, you do need to think about, okay, if I was the user, I work with the users to conduct the UAT. What the user feel? I give a very good example. How many of you have bought Google glasses? Google glasses? None of you. Yeah. Do you know why Google recalled the Google glasses? Because they did not involve users. They did not. Someone high up in Google organization, they say, oh, this Google Glass is so cool. People can wear it to drive, to do shopping for the glasses. And then they launch out. I read about online, people when they wore the Google glasses, they got headache. So if I'm lucky enough to be invited to be a BA in Google to relaunch the Google glasses, I'll definitely involve the user. And Google Glass is a hardware. So it's my responsibility in the emerging technologies world. Another example is, as you know, Facebook changed the name to Meta in October last year. They got this grand plan to make Facebook like a metaverse, but it's gone quiet because I read about someone on the blog that when they start wearing is it called Oculus, the headset and the gloves, they got really overwhelmed by all these things, the avatars surrounding them, because they Facebook invited some community to test the headset. So if I was a BA in the metaverse project for Facebook, I'll definitely involve the users to try out what's wrong with the headset or what's wrong with the hardware, and then I'm the one who basically feedback to the hardware manufacturers or whoever designed the hardware, the inventors, to fix it. So I hope you find my question okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Tom Gill. You have many requirements called objectives, such as ensure reliability and consistency of communication, all words, no measurable numbers. Do you at some point specify these numerically, like reliability and MTBF, or do they remain ambiguous specifications?
Depends on the stage. You need to strike a balance. As I said, emerging technology is very new. It's new to the suppliers, it's new to the vendors, it's new to customers, it's new to us. So there will be, I would say, in the requirements gathering, I will have a very long list of assumptions. And also in the rate, rate risk issues, dependency, all this, the risk probably is quite long as well. So I would say you have to strike a balance and don't be prepared. You will have a long list of assumptions and a long list of risk. I mean, I'm telling you something you might think is a scientific sci-fi, scientific fiction, but it's actually here. You look around all walks of life. Your phone is your IoT. Your alarm system at home is an IoT. You can look at your burglary alarm from your phone when you are on holiday in Spain. So you are actually surrounded by IoT. And Alexa is an IoT. Alexa keeps listening to you. You know that it's the deep learning. I don't know whether it's good or not. Your TV is an IoT, because your TV connects to the internet so that you can have a Netflix binge. So so everything is IoT. So you might ask, okay, when will the organization start launching the IoT? It's pretty quickly. I have a colleague, Steve. He's working in the banking sector. They already use robots for trading. Deep learning AI. A robot is not like you see on the television like this. It's not, or jumping. Robot can be hidden behind the system, and they can perform the really sophisticated tasks. I use the word Brave New World because I really admire Aldous Huxley. He predicted something like Big Brother, monitoring, controlling the population and make people in different classes like Alpha, Beta, and Epsilon. He's got this vision, and I'm thinking like 80 years later, it's happening. It's happening. Everything we have a click on the internet. Our profile is being captured for target marketing for the advertisements. So we are being watched without even knowing. But as a BA, we need to do our job. We need to actually move on to tackle the new technologies.
We've got a question from Ikena. Why is the template for benefit realization being interpreted backwards, i.e. from right to left? Any rationale behind this?
Yeah, because you need to identify the objective first. The objective is the end goal from the customers. So when you create the benefit realization map, populate the right-hand side, the objective first. So at least you know the customer goal, ultimate goal. And then you look back, okay, these are the objectives from the customer. How can I support that? What capability I need to do in order to achieve the customer objectives. And that's why I advise people when they populate the benefit realization, always start from the objective first.
We've got a question from Solutions PC. Your insight is very useful, but I have a question. I wondered how emerging technologies are designed and developed presently, and how do you see this changing in the future?
So I'll go back to the first diagram. I have this like two arrows, and they kind of blend each other. So for I try to be optimistic about the emerging technologies. I hope the emerging technology will make our life better, especially now we have this long drought. Can the emerging technology help us to kind of neutralize the climate, to make the world better? And also with the fuel price gone up to the roof, will we be able to develop some kind of renewable technology to help us? So I am optimistic about that. 2 days ago, I read about the news. China is deploying drones to spray crystal in the sky to create artificial rain. And I said to myself, oh my God, they're way ahead of UK. So they're doing it now. So with the drone deployment, they fly the drone to, they call it aerial vehicle. It's more like maybe a bigger, more sophisticated type of drone. They spray crystal in the sky to create artificial rain to tackle the drought problem. So with this example, I can see the emerging technology can actually do something that's amazing to make our life better in an optimistically way.
That's all the questions now from online.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for a really informative and refreshing session. It's really good. On the SysML side, if I was to take that back to my apprentices, my early career is they're going to be all over this. And I know what the first question they're going to ask me is, what application would you recommend to kind of document that? Or is there a plugin within M365 they can start getting their hands on with SysML straight away?
Right. In my current role as a lead consultant in Atkins, we have a software modeling repository tool called SPARX, SPARX. Yeah. The SPARX is a template for UML, SysML. So we can create the diagrams, the notation in the SPARX, and because it's a repository, so the artifacts can be reusable to another project. And also the nice thing about case tool, the repository, is it's got the template, so you don't have to use like VCO or PowerPoint to do so. For the VCO, PowerPoint is all free fall, and you can't really reuse it. And also you plug into Cucumber, Balsamic as well. So the Cucumber Balsamic can generate pseudocode, so it's easier for the programmer. SPARX is quite expensive. It's not cheap. The license is not cheap. I'm not so sure whether in your organization, your early career apprentices will be able to get hold of the licenses. But if not, then you just use VCO to do so. There's so many courses online, like Coursera and LinkedIn, that they can actually find the instruction and self-taught. I didn't go to the SysML training, but my colleagues, they went to the SysML training. You have a very thorough SysML training, 2 days. 2 days, and then the third day, they actually teach you how to use SPARX. So after 3 days, you pretty much know the basic, how to create the SysML diagram. It is very rich, the SysML diagram, because it's actually, it can model hardware as well. It's not just UML. UML is more like application or database driven, but SysML is, they basically plug the gap that UML has left off. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
In the very long term, do you see the VA role itself being replaced by non-humans?
Yeah. I kept telling myself, I've been working in the industry for so long, like a quarter of a century. I came across with, I'm a mentor as well, and I mentor other BAs, and I have a team, also BAs. They are quite complacent. One thing is, when I talk about, some kind of innovation, technology, emerging technologies, they always say, oh, we just BA, we just capture requirements. We should not think about the technology. We should leave the solutions to the architects and developers. We try not to solutionize the requirements. Yes, true. But I've been doing it like when I was in the Met Police. We hardly coded in-house. From time to time, we just bought the off-the-shelf package. So I myself, I had to go to look at how ANSYS work is a package, how Salesforce works, how SAP works, how Oracle works, and I have this knowledge. So I can go back to the customers when I elicit the requirements. I'll be able to confidently confirm to them, yes, your requirements can be supported by this release of the Salesforce or SAP, or your requirements cannot be supported at this release. Maybe we can request for the future release to add this functionality. So I've been doing it like this, and I think there's no difference in the emerging technologies, because I can see in our all walks of life, we are having IoT all the time. And I think the turning point is 2017. I joined Capita in the smart meter infrastructure project. Smart meter was the first IoT project I got involved. And at that time, they didn't use SysML. It was a nightmare. They used sequence diagram. The smart meter sent the message to the comms hub. The comms hub sent the message to the utility suppliers. And that's how they read your meter reading. They use sequence diagram to try to model the communication between the smart meter reading and the comms hub, and from the comms hub using 4G or the mobile network back to the utility suppliers and all this. And thinking back, I was thinking, yeah, probably it would be better if at that time they use SysML to model that. It would be a lot easier for the our service provider to actually do the design and the implementation. Then I moved to Raytheon in 2019, and I continued the IoT project, because Raytheon is in the military side. We have to think out of the box because we want to defend the country, so we need to adopt the latest technology. We have no option. So I was able to continue to explore myself in the emerging technology world and IoT world. I mean, in America, they use quite a lot of drone and robotic deployments in the battlefield. I mean, in the recent war invasion in Ukraine, it was the drones deployments assisted by America in Ukraine to tackle the enemies, the invaders. So we are using a lot of emerging technology already in our life, already in not just in the personal life, but also in the commercial world and military world. Is there any more questions?
No more.
So I will leave. Oh, you got a question.
Just a question on the role of the BA. How do you see? I see a challenge in the financial service sector where they take people who have SME knowledge out of the business and say, right, now you're an analyst, you're a business analyst. And they know none of those modeling techniques. In fact, they'll say that, oh, that's what the architects would do. So they can write requirements in a Word document, and they have, in that case, banking and business knowledge, and their class is analysts, but they don't do the job well because they don't have that training.
It's a very good question. You know, a lot of companies, they give the title business analyst, but if they're not business analysts, my definition of business analyst is someone have the skills which documented in the BCS BA diploma syllabus. Someone will be able to identify the business activity map and the UML and the BPMN and also the agile user story. Someone need to have that skills. But a lot of organizations, they just use SME, and they say, okay, you are not the business analyst. Ask them to come to my talk.
Okay.
And I can train them. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I come across, I work with, I better not mention the name of the organization. It's a government department. They take your tax. That's it. That's all I want to say. Yeah, they have a lot of tax assessors, and then they kind of few years before the retirement, they said, okay, you don't have to do the job. You come to the IT projects and become the BA. And then we have this daily stand-up in Jira and what have you. They have no clue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my definition of BA is they have to have the competence outlined in the BCS BA diploma syllabus.
It's a new definition.
It's a new definition. Yeah, I mean,
Because, business analysts, are strictly the legacy view is that they just analyze the business. That's all they do. And SMEs are BS.
yeah, unfortunately, job title is the organization fancy to give a job title to someone, and then when someone tells me I'm a BA, I'm thinking, what kind of BA? Is it like you're just subject matter expert BA or real BA? Yeah.
Yeah. Just to contribute as well. Sometimes, even if they give you a title, why don't you develop yourself to improve yourself? It's just like what you said along your journey career. That there's some things when they put it to you, you try to develop on it. And probably that's why you got the real brain imagine something. So I think it should be an encouragement to either the managers, the leaders, or the so-called directors. Because to be honest with you, I don't think they just want you to do the job. They're not encouraging you training-wise and other things. But as the world is going now, I think it is appropriate that they inculcate training and encourage people to do training. Yeah, in the other way around, they want you to do something, but they don't want thank you very much. They don't want to invest in you. So
yeah, I mean, when you come to this presentation, you don't pay a penny, and that's how BCS gives back to the community. Tell your boss, tell your director, there are resources, there are presentations, there are talks and seminars that all they need is to release the employees to attend the seminar without costing them the money, but just the time for the employees. It's so important. We all, as a BA or any other occupation, we need to upskill ourselves. The purpose of this talk is more like a add-on to the BCS International Diploma in Business Analysis syllabus. The syllabus has a very rich all the content, how to be a good BA, okay? And my small, tiny contribution is once you become a very good BA, and these are the techniques you can get involved in the emerging technologies in the brave new world. So next time when you come across with a robotic deployment, you will confidently say, yeah, I learned about from Kitty Hung. Yeah, bring it on. Not like, oh my God, what's that? I'm scared. How am I going to do it? How am I going to support the robotic launch or a drone or a driverless car or space shuttle? How am I going to work for Richard Branson or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos? But after that, I hope you have the courage and the confidence to apply for the job in Google, all these Blue Origin, Gallica, and SpaceX. Yeah.
I was just going to say something around the BA career, where someone who was never a BA gets moved into the BA role. I've seen that happen before on an in-flight project where the business analyst leaves halfway through, and it felt easier to move the subject matter expert who had been working with the business analyst into the BA role through some mentorship, because from obviously the organization's point of view, bringing an expert business analyst into an in-flight project who didn't have any business understanding would struggle, rather than bringing, it would be harder for them to help move the project along at that stage than the SME that had been working on that project from the outset. So I saw it, and it worked with the support of a mentor.
Yeah, I'm a mentor already. I've been a mentor for many years. Yeah, you just bring them up the skills and encourage them to
Train.
To get the BA diploma. The BA diploma is more like a driving license. It's just a driving license. It's just a beginning, and it's up to you how you drive after the BA diploma. A lot of people think, oh, I got BA diploma. Yeah, I'm wonderful. I'm brilliant. No. It's just a driving license for you to enable you to use the skills and technique to do your job. I think it's more like years of experience and culture and attitude. I really don't want to see one day the business analyst as an occupation, as a professional become obsolete, like yourself, replaced by a drone or robot. I want the BAs, my fellow BAs colleagues, to think better than a robot, better than AI, critical thinking, innovation, keep moving.
How do you get the BA diploma?
BA diploma is available on the syllabus. It's available on the BCS website. Yeah, and then you have the there are many training providers. I was so impressed with one of my staff. She self-taught. She just read the BA book, the 4th edition, and then she went to the exam. Amazing girl. I promoted her recently. Yeah, and she passed the exam. Yeah, yeah, that's important. Yeah. If there's no further question, I hope you enjoy the snacks dinner next door. Thank you so much. Thank you.